right, thank you, Justin. Welcome everybody to a meeting of the Northern Middlesex NPO. I'm David Muller. I represent Secretary Jamie Tesler here. Consistent with the requirements around COVID, we're having this meeting virtually and we are recording it, so please be mindful of that fact. Justin, please call the roll.
Okay, so Acting Secretary of Transportation, MassDOT CEO, Jamie Tesler.
This is David Muller for Secretary Tesler.
MassDOT Highway Administrator, Jonathan Gulliver.
Frank Szynski, representing Highway Administrator Gulliver.
Okay, NMCOG Chair, Andrew Delaria. Don't see him. LRTA Board Chair, Tom Bummel.
Yeah.
NMCOG MPO Representative, Pat Wojcik.
Here.
LRTA MPO Representative, Kevin O'Connor.
Here.
And Lowell, excuse me, Lowell City Councilor, NPO Representative Dan Rourke is not here. Okay, that's the roll. Thank you.
Thank you, Justin. First item on our agenda is the approval of the minutes of May 26th. Can I get a motion and a second to approve, and please state your name for the record.
Tom Bummel, so move.
Pat Wojcik, second.
Motion has been made and seconded. Are there any comments, changes, questions, or suggestions? Seeing none, Justin, please call the roll.
Okay, David Muller,
Yes.
Frank Szynski,
Yes.
Tom Bummel,
Yes.
Pat Wojcik,
Yes.
and Kevin O'Connor.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda is the staff report on TIP projects. Tim, is this you?
Yes, it is. All we had was a couple of ad dates that have changed. In Lowell, the pedestrian walkway bicycle connector at Pawtucket Falls Overlook, Vandenberg Esplanade School Street has been changed to January 2025. Westford Bridge Rehab, Beaverbrook Road over Beaverbrook has been changed to July 16th, 22. Westford Bridge Replacement, Stony Brook Road over Stony Brook, 9/24/22. And Burlington Billerica resurfacing and related work on Route 3A has been changed to January 29th, 2022.
Thank you, Tim. Any questions for Tim?
I have a question, Dave.
Go ahead, Justin.
I know this is District 3, but has there been any updates on Route 113 improvements in Dunstable?
I haven't heard anything, but
I haven't either, Justin. I can certainly reach out to District 3 today and try to get you an update.
Yeah, I'm just worried about
for the project.
Yeah, I'm just worried about that ad date, about hitting it.
Yeah.
So somebody will get back to the NPO, Justin. Either the district or Derek Schuster will get back in touch.
Thank you.
Yeah. Next item on the agenda is opportunity for public comment. Is there anyone who wants to make a comment at this time? Seeing none, if you have a comment during the rest of the meeting, please raise your hand and we will call on you. Next item is the UPWP. Justin?
Okay. All right, so at our last meeting, members voted to release the draft federal fiscal year 2022 UPWP for a 21-day public comment period, which ended yesterday. And during the comment period, we received 3 sets of comments, one from the Lowell resident, one from Federal Highway, and one from Mass DOT. So I'm on your screen here, I'm sharing the summary of each of the comments, and I'll go over each one of them in a little more detail. But you know, a lot of the comments that came in were, you know, changing some of the wording and the grammar, and that always happens with these documents. So you know, we'll be reviewing the entire document to make sure everything is set there. So with that, the first comment that came in, Mark Goldman, Lowell resident, gave me a call June 8th and wanted to put on the record that his support for the activities that are included in this proposed work program. And he was particularly interested in any kind of activities specific to the city of Lowell. So, and we appreciate his comment, and we noted that for the record. Excuse me. The second set of comments came in June 9th from Federal Highway, Chris Timmel, and just want to go through each one of them. The first set were general in nature, making sure the document is accessible and readable to people who have disabilities and need that 508 compliance. So we're gonna do that. We're gonna review that. We're gonna put in all the alt text and make sure all the revisions and commendations are noted in our final document. The second comment is under, excuse me, under funding of the UPWP. Federal Highway recommended adding a reference to the consolidated planning grant, which is our Federal Highway planning funds and our FTA 5303 program. It's all consolidated now into one grant, and so we just added a little narrative in the document just to make sure and clarify that these are these two funding programs are now one. The next comment that we had were under milestones in the UPWP development. This is just a timeline of how we developed the UPWP, and they wanted us to include the specific date of the public meeting. The public meeting was held on June 9th, and we are including that in the final version of this document. The next set of comments are under the amendments and adjustments to the UPWP section. Basically, right now, the threshold for an amendment to the UPWP is approximately 10% of the overall budget for that task. So we want to update that threshold to 25%. So that is what we are doing. So it just makes it, you need a little bit bigger of a change to trigger an amendment, which triggers a public comment period and a vote of the MPO. So we are updating that section from 10% for an amendment to 25%. Okay, the next comment that came in under current activities that are occurring in the fiscal year 2021 under a section called Transportation and Economic Development Coordination Study. The recommendation was to provide an update on the Pawtucket Street Bridge over the Northern Canal in Lowell. We had an outdated date of construction finishing, so we're updating that to show that the bridge is going to be complete in the fall of 2021. The next set under regional equity UPWP studies, this is where we look at the equity of the different tasks and activities that we do. The comment came in as how are we defining task, and really what it is a nomenclature issue with that section. Within the UPWP, there's the set of tasks. This is, the development of the TIP, development of UPWP, our pavement management, things like that. And really, instead of saying tasks in that section, we should have kind of narrowed it down to like activities within each task. So we're kind of changing around just the nomenclature of the task. We're taking out task. We're replacing that with activity. And we'll continue reviewing that as we go forward in next year's document as well. So next set of comments are under task 2.5, our performance measure work. Under the objective section, we had not included the adoption of the adjusted 4-year target for non-SOV travel. And if you remember, we did that. We adopted an update to that back in December of 2020. So, and we just missed including that in that section. So we're updating the narrative to include the work that we did back in December at the NPO meeting then. The next comment came under task 3.3, regional congestion management system performance. There was a question as to why there was a break in August 2022 for data collection. And what this is referring to is a kind of a graphic, and we have like a timeline of when we're doing data collection throughout the year. And the reason there was a break there is it was kind of a dated graph. Back, 5-10 years ago, we were actually going out and physically driving the roads and collecting travel time data to determine congestion, and that is something we no longer do. So back then, August 2022 was kind of August was kind of a dead period. It's during the summer. We wanted to really take a look at traffic while school was in session. So we kind of took a break then, and we also had breaks between Thanksgiving and New Year's, just for the same reasons. It was just off. So what we did was we updated the graphic, and that will be shown within the document as well. The next comment under task 3.8, regional freight planning. Under the products, there was a list of specific performance measures, targets for freight planning that was included in fiscal year 21. So we did review, in this year, we did review the freight planning performance measures, which are truck travel time reliability and percentage of uncongested roadway mileage. So what the state did was they looked at it and they decided that these the current targets didn't change, so there was no real, so we didn't really do a big update in federal fiscal year 2021 with this. So we just added some language in there just to reflect what had occurred back in the fall. So the next comment from Federal Highway under task 4.2, the Transportation and Economic Development Coordination Study. It's basically the same comment on the Tiger Bridge, the Pawtucket Canal Bridge, or the Pawtucket Street Bridge over the Northern Canal. And it's just, we just updated that based on their recommendation. And they also asked us to include the LRTA as part of the coordination efforts under this task. And we did add that to reflect our coordination with the LRTA. That is all the comments from Federal Highway. Are there any questions on those sets? I know there was a lot there. Or any comments from Federal Highway themselves?
Hearing none, Justin, why didn't you go on?
Okay, go on. The last set of comments, very minor from MassDOT. Derek Schuster submitted an email on June 18th, and there were 2 items that, so how MassDOT reviews UPWPs, they have this checklist, and if you look on the screen, there's this big long checklist of different things they look at. So there were 2 comments that came in. Basically, one of them is to review the charts and tables and maps, just to make sure everything is annotated, and specifically to edit the Appendix B title. The Appendix B title is our financial spreadsheet, in the draft, it had federal fiscal year 21, and we just updated it to 2. And the second comment that came in was on the signatory sheet. So, you know, this is years of back and forth with the MPO. So the signatory sheet, MassDOT has 2 votes with the MPO, but the signatory sheet only requires one signature from the secretary. And that is what you know, has been decided over the years from the MPO. It was part of our MPO MOU that we just recently updated. We can add it if the MPO desires. It's just, I'd like to hear any thoughts on that. I know we've talked about it many, many times before. All right, so everybody's good with keeping it as one signature?
Yes.
Okay. All right, so those are the comments that we've received. So based on our responses to all these comments, we're here today to consider endorsement of this document based on our response to comments and making sure everything's final.
Thank you, Justin. Can I get a motion in a second to endorse the UPWP as discussed today?
Kevin O'Connor, so moved.
Second, Tom Baumel.
Motion has been made and seconded. Justin, please call the roll.
Okay, David Muller,
Yes.
Frank Szynski,
Yes.
Tom Baumel,
Yes.
Hal Wojers,
Yes.
and Kevin O'Connor.
Yes.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Justin. The next item on the agenda, I believe, is an update on the Rourke Bridge. Frank Szynski.
Yep, thank you, Dave. Based on public feedback that in engineering analysis that we've been performing to date, the design team has indicated that the Old Ferry Road alignment, number 3, was the preferred alignment for the bridge. Since the city council's meeting that was held back in February on the 23rd, I think, the design team has focused on studying the various bridge types, alternatives, and will be submitting a bridge type study in their preliminary findings to MassDOT this week. It's due on the 24th, which I think is tomorrow. That'll be submitted, and we will, for our review and discussion. Additionally, the design team has been evaluating a number of aesthetic enhancements, including river viewing, platforms, aesthetic bridge railings, and lighting for the bridge and the cross-section alternatives for the bridge that came out of the previous public input. A second working group meeting in public meeting will be scheduled once MassDOT has had the opportunity to review the bridge type study and associated analysis for the intersection designs and also for the bridge cross sections. We anticipate that to be sometime in August. That second meeting will be scheduled. And then Highway Administrator Jonathan Gulliver wanted me to, restate again commitment to advancing the design for this project as to the 25% design stage as a design build project, but we have not been able to yet identify the construction funding source for the project. So again, I think we'll have more details to present in August once we've completed our review of the preliminary alignment and bridge type study and associated intersection designs.
Thank you, Frank. Questions for Frank?
So I have a question.
Sure, Justin, go ahead.
So the schedule is this design is supposed to be done 2023. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Yeah. So Has there been any discussion on construction funding at the state level?
There's been discussion, but like I said, we haven't identified the construction funding source, and I believe Steve McLaughlin and the team reiterated that at the working group meeting too, that we continue to look for the funding, but we haven't been able to identify the construction funding for that project.
So given our experience with the Route 3 project, which was design build, even as a design build, and that was a design build finance, so that was, you know, one step further than this. It's still, you know, I assume federal monies will be used for this because it's a pretty big ticket item. It's still needed to be on the tip. I'm assuming that that will be the case for this project. At what point will we know that so that we can make sure that things are properly in place to move the project along as quickly as possible?
Yeah, it will need to be on the tip if we do have the federal funding. It will have to be programmed on the tip. Again, for as of today, we have not identified any funding source, you know, so we haven't been able to identify that. But we would certainly be in discussions with Northern Middlesex when it comes time to programming the project, once we identify the funding source for the construction.
So the design part of the design build contract, you envision that being funded with state funds?
No, that's not necessarily. Just because it's a design build project, if you will, or procurement, it's a different level of design that we have to take it to, which allows us to advertise it at the earliest possible time frame. So that's why we chose to look at design build as the procurement, so that MassDOT would advance to a 25% design. We also need to acquire any necessary right away and identify and obtain the environmental permitting that would be packaged up as a design build project to be advanced for procurement. But without identifying the construction funding to support that, we haven't been programmed. We can't program the project until we do identify a funding source. It just means that the MassDOT will only have to take this project's design, the preliminary design, to 25% stage versus a 75%, 100% PS&E package, and then advertise the project. So it's a little bit quicker in the time frame for when we could advertise the project, but without the construction funding identified, we can't really identify when that's going to be. But we are committed to advancing the 25% design to put us in that position for future funding considerations.
Other questions? Seeing and hearing none. What's next on the agenda, Justin?
Other business.
Thank you. Is there other business to come before the NPO today?
I could give a quick, the LRTA went through their analysis of the DB, which we brought up last MPO meeting. And it looks like for this coming next 3 years, the DB goal is going to 5.85% from 5.6 that have been the previous 3-year goal. It currently is out for the 45-day comment period.
Thank you. Any questions from the NPO? Seeing none, is there any other update at this time? So Justin, when's our next meeting if we need to have it?
So if we need to have our next meeting, it'll be July 21st.
Okay.
I'll let people know.
Right, as of today, we don't need to have it, but watch your calendar and watch
Did I read it wrong?
Justin, it's not
I'm
the
sorry.
28th.
28th, I'm sorry, July 28th, you're right.
Assuming it has to happen.
And I will let people know.
Thank you, Justin. With no other business to come up for the NPO at this time, can I get a motion and a second to adjourn? And please state your name for the record when making the motion.
Motion to adjourn, Tom Baumel.
Is there a second?
Second, Pat Wojcik.
Motion has been made and seconded. Without objection, we are adjourned. Thank you all very much.
Thank
Bye,
you.
guys.
Thank you, everybody.
See you tomorrow, Kev.
Okay. Look forward to it.
All right, pal.